Stephen and Mallorie had a seemingly good marriage. They had well-paying jobs, a nice house, and friendly neighbors with whom they socialized regularly. All they lacked were children to fulfill the Freeman's American dream. Stephen was the more sober of the two. He managed the family budget, and he often had to say no to Mallorie's requests. She usually took his answer normally, though she sometimes sulked for a while. He often heard the words, "easy," come out of her mouth. Mallerie was certainly the more fun and outgoing of the two of them. She wanted children, but she also wanted other things. We need to enjoy life as it comes, not prepare for having children. She didn't want to admit it, but she was afraid that having children would deprive her of many activities she found enjoyable. At neighborhood parties, Mallerie liked to flirt and make snide remarks. She wanted to insert a provocative phrase like, "The last time I kissed Joe, I could swear it tasted like he'd just come down on," into casual conversation. Oh, sorry, I shouldn't have mentioned that. Most of their friends were used to her attempts at jokes. In response, Joe would say something like, "You must not be a very good kisser, because I sure don't remember that." Over time, as people appreciated her jokes less and less, Mallerie upped the level of nastiness more and more. One day she came up with what she thought was the best one. To do so, she needed the cooperation of her boss, Stanley. He wouldn't have considered the proposal if his wife hadn't agreed. She agreed, but on the condition that all the details be written down and notarized, as Stanley suggested, so that it could be proven to Stephen that it was a joke if he didn't believe otherwise. Mallerie began to tell Stephen that she would have to work late sometimes. This had rarely happened before. She talked more and more about what a good boss she had. The dresses she wore to work became shorter on both the top and bottom. When she came home late at night, she left her panties smeared with mayonnaise in the laundry basket. Her lipstick was smeared, and small bruises could be seen around her breasts. She always showered when she got home, no matter how late it was. Stephen never asked Mallerie for signs of her leaving. He just doesn't pay attention. Finally, Mallerie escalated the game by sending an anonymous letter warning Stephen of a possible office affair. The letter was accompanied by a photo of Mallerie sitting on her boss's lap. After there was no response, a photo of Mallerie kneeling in front of her boss in a partially clothed state was attached. Still, nothing. Mallerie gave up. She was depressed because Stephen didn't seem to care whether his wife was faithful or not. That evening, she returned home and began cooking dinner. It was ready at 6 o'clock, as usual, but her husband never showed up. By 7 o'clock, she was worried. Calls to his cell phone went to voicemail. Calls to his office were followed by a business hours message. Calls to friends were answered with "don't know." She then attempted to call the police. There were no reports of traffic accidents that resulted in anyone being taken to the hospital. She called his supervisor at home and was told that Stephen left work as usual a little after 5 o'clock. Mallerie was not the type to wait patiently. She decided to drive to his office and see if his car was anywhere. After changing out of her work clothes into something more comfortable, she went upstairs to their bedroom. Mallerie immediately passed out. When she woke up, she took another look around the place that had caused her to faint. Stephen's things were gone. As she sank into sorrow, the doorbell rang. The hope that it was Stephen emboldened her, and she flew down the stairs. With a wide smile on her face, she opened the door, ready to say, "Stephen," but instead saw a young woman. "Mallerie Freeman?" "Yes." "I have a package for you. Can you show me some identification?" Mallerie pulled out her purse, showed her driver's license, and received a package with the greeting, "You have been served." She opened the package and found that it contained what she was so afraid of, a divorce petition. Mallerie looked at the provisions for a simple 50/50ths division of property. "What an asshole! He didn't even have the decency to give me an explanation. Now he's going to feel like a fool when he finds out it was just a joke." Then she thought about how she could get in touch with him. The next day, she excused herself from work and called his office shortly after it opened. Mallerie was told that Stephen had gone on vacation for a couple of weeks. Nothing was said about the destination. She started to panic. Then she remembered that the divorce petition listed a lawyer for all contacts. Mallerie had to leave a message for the lawyer to call her back. For half the day, she tossed between him laughing at her joke and him being determined to get a divorce. Finally, the lawyer called back. "What can I do for you, Miss Freeman?" "Please tell Stephen that it was just a joke and to stop this divorce nonsense." "I assure you, Mr. Freeman does not consider the betrayal a joke and is very serious about ending his marriage." "But there was no betrayal. The whole thing was a fake calculated to be a joke. My boss and his wife will testify. We have a dated description proving we planned this weeks ago. It was a joke, for crying out loud." "Are you laughing?" "I know Mr. Freeman isn't." "Okay, I think I've gone too far. I'll gladly apologize and show him the proof. Please give him a message." "I will. He or I will call you back." The next day, she tried to go to work. Mallorie barely had time to do anything. She spent most of her time with her boss, bringing him up to speed on Stephen's reaction. He consoled her and congratulated himself on having had time to prepare a notarized statement. It was this circumstance that had prompted him to do so. He called his wife and brought her up to speed. Stephen didn't call until the evening. He wasn't thrilled. "So your affair with your boss was just an elaborate joke? Why on earth should I believe that? You did everything but include me in a threesome with him to rub my face in your infidelity." "Stephen, you know I love pranks. This one seems to have gotten out of hand. When you didn't respond to the hints I was giving you, I kept increasing the number of hints. I gave up on this prank after you didn't react in any way to the posed pictures with me and my boss. I was going to confess the night you didn't come home. It was a joke, a stupid joke. Please come home and let me make it up to you." "A joke, huh? Nice try, Mallorie, but it won't work." "Stephen, I have proof. Stanley's wife didn't consent to her husband's participation unless we put it in writing beforehand. Then we had it notarized by a notary with the start date of the joke. I have it here at my house. Please come and look at it." There was a pause before Stephen replied. "Give me his wife's phone number." Mallorie happily agreed. Stephen called and asked a few questions before he made sure he was really talking to Mallorie's boss's wife. "Is it true that they recorded this scheme before anything happened?" "Yes, I'm so sorry I agreed to it. Your wife really convinced me that you would see the humor in it and everyone would laugh. My husband and I are rather dull people, and I think we were glad for a little excitement. I apologize for our participation in the prank. I hope you can forgive us and your wife. I believe she really loves you, even though it was a bad joke." Stephen called Mallorie and set up a time for him to come over and review the document. Mallorie wanted to meet him at the door with a hug, but he refused. He had always looked fairly sober, but now he was stone cold. They sat down at the kitchen table. "Is this the document that supposedly releases you from prison?" "Yes." Stephen turned on his reader and began to read the document. He felt the impressions of the notary's seal on it, which helped prove its authenticity. "Well, this seems to prove it was a joke." "Good. You can go home now." "Wait! This only proves that it was just a stunt. It doesn't excuse the behavior of a wife who would be cruel enough to pull such a prank. Your actions were not the actions of a loving, trusting, or respectful wife. I have many more reasons to pursue the divorce." "Stephen, I'm so sorry. I really want to be everything you need and want to see in a wife. I've ruined everything. I will devote the rest of our marriage to making it up to you. I love you. I want to have and help raise your children. I want to grow old with you. I will do nothing more to jeopardize all of that. Can you think of anything other than a divorce to punish me?" "Well, I can postpone the divorce until we go through counseling. The judge will probably order it anyway." "Yeah, that's a great idea. You want to find someone you're comfortable with?" "I have no idea where to look. You can find someone if you don't mind." "I can do that. What about going home?" "That makes sense if we really want to give our marriage a chance. But I plan on using the guest bedroom, at least for a while. It's too soon, and my feelings are too raw to go back to the way they were before you pulled that stunt." "I understand. As long as you're here." Stephen returned to the house, but the lack of intimacy was obvious to Mallorie. She tried her best to be the perfect wife. She didn't stay late at work. She stayed close to him at neighborhood parties. No flirting or teasing. If she was going to be even 5 minutes late, she called. She used her sexiest lingerie or nudes to make Stephen want to have sex. It didn't work. Counseling seemed to help. Mallorie explored her need to flirt and crack jokes of a sexual nature. It turned out that something from her childhood and the way her mother treated her father contributed to this. Her own insecurities about her looks, competence, whether she was worthy of her husband, and so on and so forth. Mallerie believed that Stephen had finally recognized the unconscious forces that had helped create the crisis that threatened the marriage. Stephen's participation in counseling did not seem to go so well. He could not understand what he had done that had provoked his wife into such an insidious act. Perhaps he should have reacted sooner to the first signs of her infidelity, but he believed she would come to him if she was unhappy with their marriage. He was willing to trust her until he had hard evidence. However, he began preparing for divorce after the second week of her hints. When he received the pictures, he told his attorney to go ahead with the divorce. Stephen admitted that his feelings had been hurt, but he didn't think the divorce was an overreaction. He said it would take time to rebuild the trust that had been shattered by Mallory's so-called joke. Things at home seemed to be getting better little by little. Stephen and Mallerie were back to their normal routine in the house, with the exception of lovemaking. But there was a tension in every conversation that hadn't been there before. Both seemed afraid of making a mistake or causing guilt. Mallerie didn't think that was a way to live. At least she held back from what would have been her first choice of statement. Namely, if you're not going to have sex with me, then I can have sex with someone else. She knew that would likely cause Stephen to walk away and start the divorce all over again. Instead, she decided to ask him that night if he thought they would ever have intimacy again. Pulling up to the house, Mallerie picked up her mail from the mailbox. As she went through the mail, she saw 2 identical envelopes from the courthouse, one for her and one for Stephen. She stopped and opened her envelope. It was a notice of divorce. She was getting a divorce. Mallerie ran into the house and tried to keep her cool while she waited for Stephen. Surely it must be some bureaucratic error that could easily be fixed. She had to be careful not to accuse Stephen of something dastardly. Although things were going too slowly for her liking, the situation was improving. No, Stephen had barely gotten through the door when Mallerie told him, "We need to talk." She handed him an envelope and watched him open it. He read the document without surprise in his eyes or emotion on his face. Stephen looked up and asked, "What do you want to talk about?" Mallerie was shocked. "There must be a mistake. You postponed the divorce. We've reconciled. You have to tell them it was a mistake." "Why would I do that? I must have been kidding when I said I would postpone the divorce. You know how I love a good joke. But I showed you proof that there was no affair. You talked to Stanley's wife. She told you. We went to counseling. I know. The counseling was helpful. It was the fact that we went to counseling that allowed the judge to grant the divorce as filed. Mallerie, I decided to put myself in your shoes. What would be the perfect way to cover up an affair? I, as Mallerie, could enlist the help of my lover to convince his wife that he and I were going to pretend to have an affair, put the mock affair in writing, and then present it as a comic play. Meanwhile, he and I are actually having an affair. You, my husband, would find out thanks to the clues I gave you. Then, when you would get upset, I would pull out the document. You would get angry, but I would forgive you for being upset. I'd end up getting my normal life back, plus having an affair with impunity. No divorce for us, no divorce for Stanley, no job loss, no lawsuit against my company, which might have been the risk that kept me from having an affair even earlier. Stephen, you have a sick, sick mind. I was just trying to imagine what you would have done, dear. But damn it, I wasn't having an affair. Now call off the divorce. As I asked before, why would I want to do that? Because I love you. Mallerie lowered her head and began to sob. I haven't cheated. I swear I haven't cheated. God, I wish I was dead. The sobs grew louder and louder. He let her go on for quite a while. Mallerie, did you read the entire document? Between sobs, she replied, I think so. It just states the terms of the divorce, just like your petition. Why? Did I miss something? Her sobs subsided a little. Who signed the dissolution of marriage? Some court official, I believe. I'll have a look at it in a moment. The handwriting is bad. It looks like Donald Duck. What the hell? Sober Stephen, chuckled. You know, I think I'm beginning to understand these shenanigans. You bastard, I should kill you, Stephen smiled. How about you kill me by fucking with my brains? Mallerie couldn't help but grin through her tears. As long as you're dead, you bastard, I don't care how. Now let's go. They headed to the bedroom and began to create a big family. Epilogue. I hope the ending wasn't too obvious and enjoyed it.